Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Mike Smith with Action Coach in St. Louis West, and I'm interviewing Clint Overton today. Clint, tell us about your company.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm excited to be here today. Started an organization earlier this year called Boardroom Bullpen, and really excited about what we're doing.
Great. Well, tell us about the background of your company and how you got, what made you start it, and tell us a bit about the background of it.
No, I appreciate that. So, a little bit about my story. Well over 20 years in corporate America as an executive operator. Spent a long time in the Fortune 100 space, and then spent a little bit of time in private equity owned businesses, and then private owned industries as well. And a couple years ago, just kind of came to a career crossroads of, like many of us do, try to decide what I want to do when I grow up. And so took a little time off a couple years back, really decided to kind of take my personal talents and the years of experience I had out to the marketplace. And fairly quickly, Mike, I learned that both the startup and SMB space, when organizations are really, really intentional about transformation, it could be a little murky and muddy out there in terms of where do you go and get help, and where do you get real help and experienced people who can add value. And the other thing that happened to me kind of in that first year out on my own was I met a lot of people like myself who wanted to take their years of experience and add value in the marketplace. And so kind of serving both of those parties became really the impetus behind starting Boardroom Bullpen. So what we do in our organization is we really want to provide a one-stop shop professional services solution for
Mhm.
startups and SMBs that are growing. And the way that we do that is we're able to provide a depth of fractional executive talent across kind of key six roles in an
Mhm.
organization. And then we also have some other services that we're able to provide through strategic partners. Our whole idea, Mike, was to really simplify the experience and really
Mhm.
kind of draw a circle around 80% of the things that companies have in terms of a deficit of experience and expertise, and be able to deliver that to them in one place.
So, your organization, if I sum it up, so you provide kind of outsourced services for the C-suite. If that's is that a very short way of saying it?
100%. That's our primary anchor service. And
Mhm.
so the way that we do business, Mike, is certainly a lot of our business comes through referral channels.
Mhm.
But kind of first and foremost, we go through a discovery assessment process with the founder or
Gotcha.
CEO. And really the impetus behind that is really to get under the hood and understand what business problems the organization's trying to solve. And then based on our years of experience, our feedback is always about making a recommendation that makes the most sense for that prospect. If that recommendation makes sense for us to provide a service for them, we then make a recommendation on what role would add the most value in terms of propelling the organization forward. And then we put at least three qualified candidates, all of which would have had a number of years of experience in C-suite in a 10 plus $1 million business, or have been a functional head at a Fortune
Gotcha.
500 company, and really give the client the opportunity to have optionality around who they want to bring in as a part-time executive during their growth stage. And we
Right.
also want to we also want to give optionality to the people that have been kind enough to join our organization to choose who they work with. And so since the beginning of the year, we've been able to bring on 50 team members who
Wow.
come from kind of a variety of different backgrounds and experience to bear. And we've gotten some really good traction here in the second half of the year. Really excited about how things are going.
That's great. That's great. And with this, hopefully with the economy, doing a turn for the good from what way the markets are acting, hopefully it's going to be a better year for you as well.
No, we think so. And interestingly, I mean, obviously there was a lot of anticipation coming up to the election, but even kind of just in advance of that, we really started to see really kind of a warming trend, interest in making some of those investments going into 2025 for leadership that could help accelerate these businesses forward.
Gotcha. So you're one of the owners. I think you have a partnership, or how is your business organized?
Yeah, so I have a co-founder, Ted Stan. So he
Okay.
and I are the managing partners of the organization. Ted has a long-standing relationship here in the St. Louis community, actually co-founder of a couple of companies in the tech B2B SaaS space that have sold out to Silicon Valley over the last 20 years. And he's also served as the CFO to about 100 companies,
Oh,
both
wow.
in a full-time or fractional basis over the last 20 years as well. So Ted and I have known each other for about 16 years, and have,
Gotcha.
kind of, a kinship and experience with one another. And when we started talking about our experience and kind of how we want to serve, it became very easy as we started to walk through the design of the organization. I think we have a very common passion for
Mhm.
helping companies that want to succeed by giving them what they need and when they need it.
Great. Great. It sounds like a great partnership where there's a lot of trust in that relationship. So he handles a lot of financial. You're more focused on the executive and the operations roles, right? It's more your focus area.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say for us is that both of us have really kind of peeled back any of our individual work with clients. And so our focus really is serving the larger community and identifying opportunities for our 50 team members. So
Gotcha.
that again spans 6 roles. So that's
Yeah.
COO, CFO, CMO, CTO, CRO, and CHRO. And so we're 5 to 7 deep in all of those positions. And
Wow.
so really where we focus a lot of our energy is really getting out into the business community, building
Mhm.
our networks, and identifying opportunities where we can serve the markets better.
Right. And in your network and in your ideal client base, what's the size of company that is normally attractive for your organization? Because what's usually the best fit?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mike. So I would say we kind of have 2 tranches. And so we have a portion of our team members who have really deep experience in the tech startup space. And then
Okay.
about 70% of our folks, I would say, are traditional businesses. So the answer is kind of in 2 parts. So in the tech startup space, it's really organizations that have gotten kind of a good preliminary round of funding, probably through an angel round or a friends and family round,
Gotcha.
and then are working towards kind of their A or B round of funding in the venture capital market.
Right.
And then in the small business space, companies that are trying to grow into that mid-market arena, so $5 to $100 million annual revenue, to 25 to 250 employees. Interestingly for us, when we kind of set out on this and you put together your vision and your strategy for the business, part of that is, what does an ideal client look like? And
Right.
so there's a little bit of art and science that goes into that, but actually,
Mhm.
as we've gone through the year, what we thought was going to be kind of our bookends has actually become what our bookends have already been during the
Oh,
course of
wow.
the year. So our smallest client is probably just a little bit south of 5 million, and our biggest client's a little over $100 million business.
Wow. That's quite a range. So
Yeah.
companies that are really trying to get additional funding or have additional funding and need to, what I would say, grow up into the next level of your maturity, right? To really accelerate and grow, 5x, 10x, whatever they're trying to accomplish is really your main area of focus.
Yeah, I would say that's for sure. And I think the other thing I would say is, in a much more mature organization, one that's going through some type of intentional transformation. So that could
Mhm.
be, we have a client that has been in business for 100 years. So obviously that's
Oh,
not a
wow.
startup business. Like I said,
Right.
we kind of have 2 tranches. And that business in particular is just going through kind of a financial transformation about how they're
Mhm.
operating their financial organization. So for us, it's really any organization who's intentional about transforming. I would
Mhm.
say the majority of the time that's very growth oriented, but in some cases it's really around sustainable execution. And so in both of those areas, just because of the breadth of experience and executives we're bringing in, they're able to kind of walk in day one, just because there's a lot of been there, done that, and where they can add a
Right.
lot of value to whatever the vision of the business is.
Right. So what's the one thing you wish people listen to this podcast, in the business world knew about your business or industry? What would be something like, I really wish more people knew X because it would be easier for us to explain what we do. What is that one thing that you think about if you could get across? What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that's really interesting. So fractional, the term fractional means a lot of different things to a lot of
Right.
different people. And
Hmm.
as I kind
Right.
of describe it to folks as well, is, you think about how the East Coast and West Coast works, like fashion, art, and music
Right.
always
Hmm.
starts on the coast and slowly makes its way to the Midwest. So
Right.
fractional is not really a foreign concept on the coast, but it is kind of in
Mhm.
the middle of the country. And
Gotcha.
so I think the big thing, organizations getting their head wrapped around the fact that how can I get value from somebody who's part-time in my organization,
Mhm.
and really being kind of open to the idea of that. And the reality is that what we do is, instead of trying to stretch somebody who's a junior person, giving them a label of a bigger job and expecting them to do more, we're
Mhm.
giving somebody that you never thought you could afford before in your organization, at a price that you can afford at the right time of your growth, and allowing you to pair that with the people that are kind of the doers and executors in your business, to really kind of create a force multiplier in your business.
That's a great statement. That is really well done. I appreciate that very much. So you went through and you've worked in corporate America and big companies like I have as well. We've seen all types of things that go on there, and now you're working with what we call smaller to mid-sized companies, from 5 million to 100 million. So what's the most memorable hurdle that you can recollect since you've started your business? Like, you've gone through, the startup, you've gone through where you're doing a lot of the work. Now you're able to go and staff and bring more people in and really scale it. What's the biggest hurdle that you is most memorable for you in this period of time that you've had your startup till today?
I mean, I think it goes back to what you just asked. I think it's just about educating the marketplace. And so the
Mhm.
thing that's been really fun, I think, for myself and for Ted as well, is that, you know, the stick to itiveness of getting out and networking and communicating. And then, because of the fact that we've been able to build trust and relationships in the market, now we have other people who are in rooms that we're not in, actually communicating what we do. And so
Right,
what we're finding is that, kind of slowly but surely, we don't
right,
have to educate as much as we were before, because the
right.
marketplace is starting to kind of close the gap on their understanding, which has been pretty exciting.
That's great. That's great that it helped work that way. So you talked a little bit about private equity and some of the different financial vehicles that are out there. I'm sure that community is now well aware of you, as you said, right? It's they got to know who you are and what your name means, et cetera. So now you're becoming more of your go-to organization that they can rely on to, staff them appropriately and get the goals done that they've obviously offered through their financial vehicle, right? So that's the way that I kind of hear you as it's matured. And being able to be the go-to is a lot easier than cold calling and going, "Hey, here's the name of our company. Here's what we do." Because it's a lot like business coaching. Unless you have that need, people don't really understand it. And as we network in these different networking groups, everybody knows what a plumber is. Everybody knows what an electrician is. Everyone knows what a HVAC person does. But when you're in one of these specific business services that you do, it's very hard sometimes for people to really understand that and to really be able to identify who good referrals are. But once you find it, as you found, it's a golden goose for you. So that's great. That's great.
It is,
So
yeah. Thank you.
yeah. So where are you seeing your business headed the next 3 to 5 years? You guys have you gotten up, you've just added 50 plus, to your head count. The years coming up towards the end where everybody's making their big plans for 2024. What do you see the next 3 to 5 years in your specific industry and your business?
Yeah, so I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head on part of it. So there's kind of two things strategically that we're focused on. So one is I mentioned the coasts, and
Mhm.
the fact
Mhm.
that there's kind of a longstanding history in San Francisco and New York, among a number of other areas, in terms of kind of the types of services that we provide. So we're being very intentional about some markets in kind
Mhm.
of the center of the country, where we think we can
Right.
add value, and starting to be very intentional about entering those markets, building teams in those local markets, and then educating
Mhm.
those markets in terms of the value proposition.
Mhm.
And then the second thing that we're really starting to lean into here as we get towards the end of the year is really building those relationships with both private
Okay.
equity firms and venture capital firms. And in particular, I would say kind of our focus and energy is those size firms that don't necessarily have like a large operating partner framework.
Mhm.
So they want to add value for their portfolio companies, but they don't necessarily have the 30 or 40-year history of a firm where they've built up, a
Mhm.
whole group of operating partners that they can kind of plug in when a need arises. And
Right.
so we see ourselves as being kind of that extra set of arm and legs for those
Okay.
smaller firms. So those are the two places that we're really kind of intentionally leaning into as we go into next year, and really feel like those are the things that are going to help us grow our organization substantially.
Yeah, and I see as a fellow Midwesterner, been a Midwesterner all my life, lived in three of the Midwest states, and have been over the entire Midwest in different roles that I've taken. Midwest people like Midwest people. So it's nice to know that, we think about the coast, everybody's going to get on a plane from New York or LA and fly here. It's like we got really smart people here in the Midwest. And I think building the know, like, and trust with other, fellow Midwesterners makes a lot of sense. And it makes it, more in tune with your clients because, the guy, he lives out in the same place in Illinois or Ohio or Indiana, where they live, and it makes it a lot easier to do that. So I'm sure you're finding a lot of that and probably more affordable as well because we have a different cost structure here in the Midwest, thank God, than we do on the two coasts.
No, I agree. And it's actually been pretty comforting starting to spend some energy and making some connections in some of those other Midwest markets, how easy those conversations have been. Obviously you worry a little bit about being the out of towner or the unknown.
Hmm.
And I think the reality is if you're authentic and people understand that you're credible and that you care about what
Hmm.
you're doing and you care about how you do it, and you're providing a value proposition to their market, generally folks in the Midwest are pretty open to having a conversation and figuring out how they can help you be successful.
Yeah. Yep. We have a good style here in the Midwest. We like it. A good value system. So one of the things we've talked about a couple different times is the number of folks that you've brought on. So what's your approach to hiring and recruiting? Finding these unique folks that have that skill, who have the ability to do a fractional role for a couple different companies. Tell me about how you go out and source and hire those, and what's your approach?
Yeah, great question. So
Mhm.
one of the things that we did when we really designed the organization was we haven't really even mentioned this today, but we actually put our pricing out on our website and it's 100% transparent. And we did that with a lot of intentionality, but we also did it with a lot of confidence because we
Mhm.
knew that we were going to set a very specific criteria of the
Mhm.
folks that we were bringing in. So instead of like the good, better, best solution, we really look at it as we're providing a premium service to the marketplace, but also
Right.
giving premium resources that folks don't necessarily realize they could have afforded in the past.
Right.
And so a couple things. So one is that anybody on our team has to have either been multiple years in a C-suite role in their
Mhm.
function in a 10
Yep.
plus $1 million a year business,
Right.
or a functional head in a Fortune 500 company in the same discipline, just because we look at that as kind of requisite experience.
Mhm.
The way that we find our folks, honestly, to date, it's all been what I would call kind of 1 to 2 degrees of separation. So that's always the starting
Gotcha.
place is
Mhm.
we have somebody in our trusted network that we trust who's introduced us to somebody who they've worked with and experienced in the past. The other thing that I would say is that we're very specific about the fact that when we bring on folks, we're bringing on people that really are committed to being a fractional executive because of the fact that we assume our engagements are going to be probably 18 to 36 months. So
Right.
we're not looking for somebody who's just trying to kind of fill a void for 3 months while they find their next job, because we want to be able to provide sustainable services to the clients we're serving. So we want people who are kind of committed to that model. One thing I would add to that I did not mention, and I do think this is important in terms of kind of how we define fractional. We don't pursue the idea of doing consultancies and projects, and
Okay.
we're not really doing what some people would call interim work, where you have somebody full time for like 3 or 4 months until you hire the next person. We're really being intentional about being in that executive role during a growth or transformation period before the company where before it really makes sense for them to invest in that type of a
Right.
premium resource full time.
Great. That's great. Thank you. That's well received because people think, oh, I can get this role between jobs. No, that's not the way it is. This is a full-time job that's incremental at different companies. You can be fractional at a couple different companies and you get an 18 to 36 month plan, which gives the stability to a lot of those organizations. And because you constantly don't want to turn over your fractional C-suite as well. So you have all these folks. How would you describe your leadership style? What's your leadership style?
Well, I mean, for me, because of the fact that this was pretty intentional in
Hmm.
terms of I kind of went through my own transition.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'd say my leadership style and Ted's as well with our organization is that we're really trying to identify the things that energize our team
Okay.
and create opportunities for them to do the type of work that they want to do. Right.
Right.
So again, for us, we're kind of serving two parties at the same time,
Right. Right.
adding value for our clients, but also one of the first things that we talk to folks about when we talk about them potentially joining our organization
Hmm.
is what not what can they do, but what do they want to do, and
Mhm.
really trying to make sure that we're being very intentional about creating opportunities for them that match the things that they're most passionate about.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. So, we might have touched on this another piece, but if you just tell me, like, what's your key to success? Like, what's the one thing that you say, out of my 30 years of experience, 30 plus years of experience, this is the one key to success that I think really represents me.
Authenticity.
Authenticity. That's great. Yeah, we've sat down and met and had a great conversation. I would say that's exactly right. That's great. We've got a lot of different types of people who are going to listen into this podcast and watch the video. So, what's one piece of advice you would give them to others about being a business owner and going through that journey? You've worked at big companies, now you got your own business. What's the one piece of advice you would tell someone, that was in our place, right? But we're for big companies now, we're going to go out and do something else. What would you tell them?
Well, I think the big thing is it doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur, you're running a small business or a medium-sized business. I think is spending the time and investing in
Mhm.
terms of being very intentional and clear about what your vision of as what you want to do and how you want to do it. The reality is that many of us, I think, kind of go through life kind of acting and reacting and not
Mhm.
necessarily kind of owning what we have as our future.
Mhm.
And for me in particular, I would say having gone through what I did a couple of years ago, where I had a chance to kind of make that really difficult decision to go out on my own,
Right.
once is really investing the time to be clear about what your North Star looks like and then building a
Mhm.
plan around it and then owning it. Because then honestly, once you're clear on that, everything
Mhm.
gets a lot easier.
Wow, that's really, really good sage advice. Great sage advice. Anything else you would like to say before we kind of wrap it up here and close it up? Anything else you want to say that you could offer to the listeners?
One thing that I didn't mention, I do think this is important, is just in terms of our organization and how we operate, is
Mhm.
very mindful of the difficult decision that it is for a founder or CEO to make a decision to bring in somebody from the outside.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we've done very intentional to make that easier is that when we start an engagement with a client, it's always month to month, 30-day notice period. So,
Mhm.
and we do that, Mike, because for us, we want to kind of reduce the barrier of entry, but we also want to give the client a ton of comfort that if it
Mhm.
doesn't work for them, then they can exit very quickly. But we're,
Gotcha.
we're also very confident on our end that once they experience the type of talent that we're bringing in, they're going to want to keep them around. So that's something we've been, very intentional about as well, and has been very well received in the marketplace.
Great. Well, let's wrap up here. So, what I'd like to do is thank you for being on here. Let's give us the name of your company one more time and how they can get a hold of you and your name again because this will be towards the end of the call, and we'll cut off from there. If you want to go ahead and give your elevator speech again at the end, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm Clint Overton, managing partner of Boardroom Bullpen. You can check us out on our website at www.boardroombullpen.com. You can also contact us at info@boardroombullpen.com. And we're the professional services firm for growth companies. So if you have questions, please reach out. We'd love to find out if we can help you. And if not, we'll put you in the right direction.
It's great. Can I ask you a personal question from something hanging on your wall there? Are those military jewels on the wall? Are
Yeah,
those
so
military?
one's an original, the other are replicas of my grandfather who fought in World War II.
Oh, we greatly thank him for being a veteran. My dad was a Vietnam veteran. Actually, I was 10 months old before he saw me. So I really appreciate, Veterans Day and all that they've done that. And it's great that you display those. I just moved, but haven't been able to display my father's yet. But it's good that we still hold onto those. So have a great
Absolutely.
day and greatly appreciate your time, energy, and effort today. And good luck in your business.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you having me on today.